Few things happened to me out on X. One recently was up in Shoalwater. To the Yanks that have been in the training area, they'll remember the urban facility. It's a little town over about half a square kilometer made out of Conex and modified shipping containers. Complete with doors, functioning windows, a realistic marketplace and even a complex sewer system accessed from various buildings and streets around the facility. Water came up to your knees, full of cane toads, snakes, and even a few eels. Greentext in effect. 2011 Talisman Saber. Enemy party, playing an enemy SF call sign, chest rig over bomber jacket with baseball cap accessories and all that jazz. Bluffer's situation has detected elevated radiation levels coming from sewer. Bluffer's mission is to conduct cordon and search of UOTF by night in order to locate possible radiological threat. Night falls. Have a pretty good working relationship with Platoon Sarge. He walks up, tasks me with patrolling the sewer. Wants me to cap as many cunts as possible down there and then die in place. I thought cunt.exe. Open up trapdoor, climb down ladder, water just below junk at this stage. Pitch black, no NVG. Sounds of lapping water, toads doing their thing croaking and shit. Wait on rifle up, using Surefire on F88 as a handheld torch. Have a rough idea where I'm going. Reach about the middle of the sewer complex, big room shaped like a spider's web, connecting tunnels branching off in all directions. Plan was to duck down another tunnel when they start wading through and conduct a fighting withdrawal for a bit before dying. Lean against a wall, switch off light and close eyes for a bit, listening to the water lapping about. Decide to wait for sound of choppers, they usually chopper insert when raiding the facility. An hour or so passes. Gradually, the noise from toads starts to die off. Water still lapping about though. Movement around my legs. Flick on light. Metric fucking shit ton of cane toads swimming every which way, trying to climb on me. Raise rifle a bit, look ahead. More toads literally climbing and swimming over each other to get away from one particular tunnel. What the fuck? Shine light down tunnel. Light disappears into darkness. More what the fuck? Start to hear soft, ragged breathing from the tunnel. Shut off light, close eyes, and open mouth to try and hear better. Ragged breathing continues, definitely not coming from me. Open eyes, switch light back on. Breathing turns into hoarse laughter, like a patient with terminal lung cancer. Laughter increases in volume and ferocity. Hear sloshing, as if something is moving down the tunnel. Call out our army's warning we use when breaching with friendlies nearby. Our lads and those that have worked with us will know it. It echoes down the tunnel. Sloshing stops. Silence. Toads still milling around my knees. Suddenly hear the voice of my mate repeating the warning back up the tunnel. Exhale a pent-up lungful of air. About to answer back and give him a bit of shit when another voice from a different bloke in the platoon repeats the warning. Then another bloke, same warning. Then a different bloke. Then more, all different people, some I don't recognize. Voices get louder. Start overlapping each other, as if they're singing in an out-of-time choir. Start to get a bit worried now. Voices abruptly stop, as if someone cut the cord. Silence again. No movement around my feet now. Quickly shine light down. No toads. Bring rifle up, shine light down tunnel again. Shape in the light. Sickly wet form stooped down in the tunnel, body is a writhing mass of tendrils with a set of round yellow eyes that kept shift place like a chameleon. Freeze for only a millisecond, blink, not believing this shit. It screams in Sarge's voice. Die in place. I bellow in fright, off safe and dump a mag of blanks into nothing but air. About turn and bail down the tunnel I came from. Rapid sloshing water behind me. It's fucking chasing me. Panicking, grunting, screaming, falling over trying to wade through the fucking water, and all the fucked out cane toads die in place. Reach the ladder gasping, quickly sling gat and start yelling out to anyone whilst climbing up. The cunt grabs my boots and pulls me down. Slam my head into one of the horizontal rungs. Go under the water. Can't see shit, massive weight pressing down on me, both legs and an arm pinned. Feel repetitive blows around my midsection, like something is trying to punch through the rig. Muffled yells from above the surface. Getting gripped around throat, can't breathe. Grab clasp knife from pocket with free hand. Start desperately slashing and stabbing at anything I can. Thrust it into something and can't get it loose. Start to black out, lose grip on my knife. Light from above though the water, think it's heaven. Weight relinquishes and inverts my knees as it bails off me down the tunnel. Surface gasping, suck in as much air as I can. Hear panicked voices and mates yelling down. Sound of rapid moving boots on the ladder. Look up to see my mate grabbing the shoulder of my chest rig, trying to pull me towards the ladder. Grab the fucking ladder, cunt. Grab on, climb up as fast as I can behind him. Burst through the trapdoor, gag a bit, vomit, someone unslings my gat, sits me down. Chaos going on, headlamps and torches everywhere, bit of yelling, someone tells someone to fetch the medic. Blood pissing from forehead. Soaked through. Clothes and chest rig shredded. Gasping for air. Looking like a fucking abortion. Did you cunts fucking dash? Mates chime in. We heard your voice bro, heard you yelling. When we came near the drain we heard Sarge tell us to stand down and go to bed. Came from the sewer man. Yeah. We opened it up, shone our lights down and saw a shape move in the water, NIGHTMAN you surfaced. What the fuck brother? I take in a few lungfuls of air. Something down there man. Blank stares. Fucking bunyip, brother. They snigger, call me a shit cunt, pick me up dust me off and we walk back to our connexes. Walk around for a bit, some people still up and milling around, decide to try to find out what happened. Apparently the bloofer attack was called off during the night due to OHNS situation in sewer. Nobody knew I was down there. Try to find Sarge, to ask him WTF. Politely ask platoon commander where he is. Sarge was tasked at lunchtime with a Jackie run back in Rocky. He's due to return the following morning. Rack out with an assload of questions and bad feelings. Wake up a few hours later, my clasp knife has been placed right in front of my face on my stretcher, few drops of that stagnant sewer water on the blade. Fuck the sewer at Raspberry Creek. He prefaced this, English is not my first language but I did study it in school so please excuse my errors. I think it's been long enough since it happened that I can safely talk about this. This takes place in 1994 Poland. Myself and several friends were poking around in one of the areas that, because of the Soviet occupation, no one had been in for a couple of decades. Because of this it was all overgrown and wild, so we were armed with a mix of rifles, pistols, and knives. I personally had brought along my uncle's carabiners. We hiked into the forest from the edge of an old fence line. A couple kilometers in we found an old asphalt road. It was cracked and weathered with trees starting to grow up through the roadbed, but we decided to follow it in. It ended about 7 kilometers later at a large grassy clearing. We chose to camp here for the night. In the morning we noticed that something had paced around the perimeter of our camp. The grass was bent down and flattened from where it had walked. We didn't think much of it though. Thought it was a deer. We packed up and continued on into the forest. We decided to hill up the side of a mountain we could see from the clearing, get above the trees and see what we could see. As we walked I felt like we were being watched. We reached a good spot to look around from and not far from where we had camped we could see another clearing with some kind of concrete structure there, so we hiked back and made our way over that direction. At the edge of the camp clearing we found another old road that led in that direction. At the other clearing, the road we were following dipped down into a cut and led to a concrete bunker. After a brief discussion, we decided it was too small to be what we saw from the mountain, and so continued further into the clearing. Continued in next post. The picture is similar to the bunker the second road ended at, only the ramp down to it was wider and more gently sloped. Back to the story. We didn't walk long before we were on top of the large concrete pad. There was a massive four-way door atop it that was partially open. Maybe a foot or so. If it were fully open, I think you could easily drive an oversized hauler through it with room to spare. We looked down in it, but it was really too dark to see anything except a couple flickering lights down at the bottom, and the reflection off water way down at the bottom, machinery, and a missile cradled by a bunch of machinery. It was too dark to tell how intact everything was. We threw a couple rocks in, and they bounced off some stuff as they fell before splashing into the water at the bottom. We made our way to the edge of the pad to discuss things again. We decided since there was power, but it was obviously abandoned, we might as well explore. So we went back to the bunker door we'd found. I and of my friends worked at the door while the others got the flashlights ready, since we weren't sure what to expect regarding lighting. Because we didn't have any tools, it was harder to get open, but we managed with a couple sticks and a pipe we found lying around. The door opened with a hissing whoosh as the air pressure was different inside than out. At first we'd thought it was a snake or something and had jumped back. After letting the air inside and out mix, and let the feeling of being idiots go away, we pulled the door fully open and looked inside. There was a layer of dust inside, and more lights were on here than in the silo. Walls painted flat gray, Cyrillic writing on the walls just inside. None of us really were any good with Russian, and our bad translation was something like West Missile Station Anti-Capitalist Array. I got pushed into going in first because I was the only one with a semi-automatic weapon. More in the next post. The complex itself wasn't really big. Maybe a little larger than a two-bedroom apartment. There was a room with 2 sets of bunk bed cots, no mattresses, but there were steel footlockers with nothing in them bolted to the floor. The room across from this was a kitchen and dining area. Heavy iron table, electric stove, and folding chairs, then a hallway to a command room with an armored window into the silo itself. The hum of electricity was strongest in the command room. An entire wall was dedicated to a large control panel and old analog computer. Like the one from Team Fortress 2 that informs the soldier about the blue spy in the base. Its monitor was like that. Some of the bulbs were broken, so I don't know what they would have indicated. They were all in block Cyrillic letters and easier to translate, but the one that were dimly lit up were silo doors stopped obstruction in /on tracks. I don't remember what the others said. Under the window into the silo there was a flip clock that was paused at 2 minutes and 34 seconds with a red light next to it, and there was no actual launch button that we could find. There was another door that we couldn't get open and look around deeper into the silo, so after poking around a bit more and double checking for anything interesting, we made our way out and back towards where we camped the night before. All the while I couldn't shake the feeling we were being watched. We set up camp and went to sleep. To this day I don't know if it was a dream or actually happened, but something was laying atop me, and just watching me. No one else in the camp, just me. It was heavy and I couldn't move anyway, but the eyes, they looked smart. I don't know what. Another post, and I think I will have it all posted. When we woke up the camp was torn apart. Our food was missing, and the cooking supplies we had were scattered all over, and something had walked through the camp, its paws digging into the earth beneath. 2 of our weapons were missing as well. A revolver and a hunting rifle. We were all freaked out. Between the food being gone and a storm looking like it was coming in, we decided to hike out that day. About 2 kilometers of hiking the storm hit and began raining, as though the sky itself was angry at our trespassing. We had not packed for rain, so we were soon wet and hungry and tired. I still felt like I was being watched. Our hike was slow and tiring. We reached about where we thought we'd found the road and began hiking out. Everything looked different, but there were some of the knife marks we'd made in the trees to mark our passage. A couple kilometers from where we expected the edge of the forest to be, we tripped over our food. Well, the containers and some of the vegetables. All neatly stacked and out in the open, like it'd been left for us to find. After we got over trying to wrap our minds around it, we began walking with our weapons ready. Not long after we found our food, we saw something. It looked like a dog. Or fox, but it was far too large, like a small car. Too long, and the fur was a fake-looking silver like a cheap wig. When it opened its mouth, there were far too many teeth. It smiled at us, I think it was smiling, and just wandered off into the woods. After a mild panic attack, we started walking again, hiking a bit faster than we should have. It didn't take long for us to be running in a panic. I don't know how long it took us to get out of the forest, but we did. A couple of my friends went to the authorities and told them about the wolf in the woods. I think they told the whole story though. One more small post. A couple days later they were just gone. Their parents were shaken and knew something but wouldn't say or even acknowledge they had even had a child. They were just gone. Even now I think it was remnants of the KGB keeping secrets. I only went into those woods once more after that. My curiosity got the better of me a couple years later. I never found the road, or whatever the fox was, and I returned home. I've held this story close since then, but I think it's safe to tell now. But I don't know, I might get woken up by a bag of the head. I don't know.
Nigger, I'm a reenactor too. Blanks flash like a motherfucker, more so than live ammunition. They're a lot noisier too. Blank firing adapters are easy as hell to get for any decently common firearm. They range from like $8 for com block surplus training BFAs for axe and such, to $100 plus us made fancy low-profile BFAs. I think you have a very vague understanding of how a blank works. A BFA doesn't plug the barrel, what it does is constrict it to about 3 millimeters. Speaking of BFAs, I have a somewhat related story. Be in the early 90s. Out doing World War II reenactment, on the German side as Fallschirmjägers. Good day of firefights, driving around in a Kubel wagon while in firefights, and napping during firefights. Night falls. Sitting around fire with Buddy, he was our machine gunner and I was his loader. He's got a semi-auto converted MG42 because he has far too much time and money on his hands. I have a Karabiner 98K. Here, in a shitty German accent, Amerikaner, 12 o'clock. American airborne dude wanders out of the bushes in front of us. Quiet fucker, we didn't hear or notice him tramping through the brush. The actual reenactment ended long ago, next engagement is tomorrow, so we don't light him up. He walks up to our campfire and sits down, and says, this time with a standard Pacific Northwest accent, Tim, wanna have a cigarette with me? My name is DOM, close enough. Wait, why the hell is he addressing me by name? I've never even seen this dude before. Must be a new guy, the other Americans probably named us. Ein moment. Produce cigarettes and matches. Hand a cigarette to him, and one to my buddy. Strike a match and light my own, then pass matches around. American dude is smoking hard, like taking a huge drag every second. Practically shoving the cigarette into his face. He's done with it in like 30 seconds. Drops the butt on the ground, doesn't extinguish it. I figure it's a combination of him probably being drunk, like us, and the long marches. After we finish our smokes, the dude just sits there and stares at the fire silently for like 5 minutes. So what's your name? Johann, you can call me John if you want. There's a guy on the American side named Johann who goes by John. Except this isn't him, and I've known the other Johann for like 3 years at this point. Hell of a coincidence, did you meet the other Johann? He just fucking smiles at us. Not even a smile, more like pulling his lips back like a growling dog. Hear a bunch of crashing in the bushes behind where Creepy John came out. American airborne walks out of the bushes, visibly annoyed. Hey asshole, would you fucking mind giving us back Tim's kit? That shit isn't cool. He's fucking freezing, it's 35 degrees out. Looks over to us. And why the hell didn't you turn him around as soon as he got back here? I told you guys to stop fucking letting teenagers into your group. Referring to an incident in which a drunk 16-year-old nearly burned down airborne #2's tent. Drop German accents. We very rarely go out of character unless someone gets injured. Dude, we don't fucking know this guy, we thought he was one of yours. Creepy dude is mockery loading his rifle. Like moving his hand over to his bandolier, not actually pulling anything out, and putting the nothing into the breech of his M1 rifle. Does this like 3 times while we all just fucking stare at him. Suddenly jolts upright, starts laughing like crazy, more like an inhuman cackle. We all take a step back, airborne number 2 and I unsling our rifles while my buddy grabs his MG. Buddy shouts, "Drop that rifle and get the fuck on the ground, we're calling the sheriff's department." We all think he's a fucking inbred axe murderer or something. Airborne number 2 is known for being a ballsy dude, makes a grab for his rifle. Suddenly he just isn't there. Scan right. Scan left. He's 6 inches to my left, grinning at me. His mouth looks like it grew 2 inches wider. Eyes are all red, like all of his blood vessels popped. Arms are hanging like 6 inches past the end of his uniform's sleeves. Dive backwards onto ground and fire a blank at him simultaneously. Flash blinds me for a fraction of a second. Work the bolt on my rifle furiously, about to fire another shot before I realize he's gone. We all scan. He's now in a bush about 10 m to our 130. All 3 of us light him up. At this point, the other 6 guys in our unit are out of their tents. What the fuck are you doing, you goddamn, what the hell is that? Dude is hunched over, heaving like he's about to throw up. Bolts back up, lets out a guttural scream. Says, in what I can only compare to a mimicry of human speech, "I'm gonna gut you, you crowd sons of bitches." Everyone else scrambles for their guns and starts firing. Our sniper produces the .44 revolver he carries for bare defense. Fires a live round at the fucking thing as it just stands there. It curls over from the impact, howls in pain, and dashes out into the bushes uphill to our right. We all march over, weapons raised, to check if there's any blood. No fucking blood. Our guy is adamant that he hit it. We search around in the bushes, and eventually find the rifle and helmet it took from the real Tim. Find the bandoleer torn off a little farther up, with a bullet hole in it. Guttural screaming from what sounds like maybe 30 m away. We all fucking book it back to the campsite, just as the rest of the Americans are arriving. American sergeant walks up, fuming. "Hey, thanks for fucking waking us all up with your drunken bullshit." Tim Actual is there too, wrapped in a blanket and wearing someone's spare boots. Sergeant notices we're all pale as hell. Cools off a bit. "You guys alright? You look a bit shaken up." Describe situation to him as MG buddy breaks out his Motorola Micro TAC and calls 911. Wait for sheriff to arrive. Form defensive perimeter and fix bayonets. Wait for sheriff to arrive. We hear the sirens in the distance, sprint the full mile to where the road ends. Arrive with rifles slung and hands up. 3 squad cars, 5 deputies plus the sheriff step out. All are armed with shotguns. Get the feeling that this has happened before. They politely ask us to unsling and put down our weapons. We reluctantly comply. They tell us that they'll escort us up to our camps, and that we need to take down our tents, pack up, and get out of the area immediately. Sheriff explains as we walk that they get a few calls like this every year. The thing has never hurt anyone yet. They've been trying to get the whole R closed off and clear-cut. Forest Service doesn't see shape-shifting murder demons as a good enough reason. Fuck the Forest Service. Get back to camp, pack up. Do the same at the American camp. Hear that same guttural scream, really fucking close. Sheriff and deputies start emptying shotguns towards the noise. Screams continue. We all book it back to the cars/jeeps/cubble wagon. Hurl our gear into the cars, screams still coming closer. Start cars. As we're turning around, headlight beams illuminate the thing fucking standing in the middle of the trail. Twitching deputies lean out of their car windows and fire the rest of their ammo at it as we collectively get the hell out of Dodge. About 2 more miles down the road, sheriff signals for us to pull over. Explains the whole Wendigo legend to us. Tells us, I'm not saying that that's what you saw up there, but if I were you, I wouldn't go back there if you gave me $1 million. Sagely advice. Me, Buddy and our 2 other tag-alongs stop in at a diner to get coffee and discuss. We can figure out no rational explanation. Americans lost about $400 to $500 worth of gear up there. Drive home is uneventful, unable to sleep that night though. Never return to that godforsaken place, continue reenacting elsewhere, be junkie. There's this heroin/coke dealer who has his little crew and always throwing cash around, doing dumb shit. One day over there buying my shit for the day. Announce they're all going camping, they love to do impulsive random shit. Beg to go with, I love camping, especially with crazy, cool people such as these folks. Leave Minneapolis to the wilderness outside Duluth. Group of 7 people. Setting up camp, disorganized as fuck. One couple already fucking in their tent, lol. With all the chaos and getting high, events weren't clear until later. 2 dudes go to get firewood and make sure nobody else is around to see us using needles and call cops. Nobody really takes note/cares to remember they leave. 30 minutes later one guy comes back. Where's the other one? I don't know, I went for wood, he went to make sure we were safe to get high. Whatever, he's probably just nodding off somewhere. 2 goddamn hours later, other guy strolls into camp, looking very not high. Where were you? Oh. Looking at birds. LOL, what the fuck, what junkie likes bird watching? Nighttime comes around. Can't. In a sec. Dude who came back later acting strange, seems generally confused by our weird activities, looks almost pissed confused. Sits down on a log by fire suddenly, awkwardly, like he's really drunk. Hard junkies don't drink. Junkies be acting strange always, whatever. Been almost 9 hours since we arrived. People getting dope sick, withdrawal, time to get stoned. Dope is passed around, everyone desperately starts cooking up. Between cooking and strapping up I notice the guy just smelling the chunk of dope, looking like he can't handle the smell. WTF again. Everyone's done shooting up, the guy is still sniffing the chunk. By now everyone notices. He cautiously licks the dope, has incredibly strong taste and smell of uber vinegar. Makes this horrible, animal gagging/hacking sound. Day fuck. The main dealer guy offers to cook and prepare shot for him, he was already high and didn't notice strange behavior too much. The guy mumbles Maya. Shoots him up. Note, your average junkie does enough dope in one shot to kill King Kong and his whole family, tolerance is a bitch. Guy's whole body starts to shake. His eyes are popping out, everyone still staring with dopey glazed eyes. He makes this strange panicked choking breathing sound, like there's really wet towel in his mouth/throat. Blood literally pops out of his nose, incredibly dark colored. Starts to make intense high-pitched screeching scream noise, stopping to choke/cough suddenly every second or 2. These are not normal OD symptoms. Horrible, horrible stench permeates the camp. Holy shit. Falls over backwards, panic ensues. Dude, you gave him too much fuck. Main guy goes to help him up, can't, stench increases to the point where the rest of us are gagging and/or puking. Hear very distant scream from forest, amid the panic I think nobody else notices. Hear other screams/screeching join in, everywhere, what the fuck, the panic levels cannot be contained, junkies screaming inside the camp too. Screeching outside camp grows and grows, ears are ringing, stench is clogging my lungs, can't take it. Overwhelming smell and high-pitched ringing too much to handle. Blackout. Awake in morning. Look around. Very shaky, can smell hints of stench from last night. Nobody to be seen, except that fucking guy, the goddamn guy, boots sticking up from the log he fell off of. Walk over slowly. Looks like he's been dead weeks, skin is tight over his face, white and blue, eyes sunken, looks like he lost 80 pounds before dying. Blood covering him, I don't know from where. Realize I am covered in blood too, there are scrapes and dents/holes all over the ground, some obviously animal tracks, human footprints, handprints, and combinations of all. Some seem to be dragged. Withdrawing and losing my mind, steal the main dealer's car, go home, and never speak of it again. Never heard a word from or about any of those people ever again, except for one girl, who got put in a psych ward I heard. Never visited her.
I'd like to start off by saying that I don't have a fucking clue why I'm posting this on X, or, really, at all. Maybe I'm afraid of dying, or something. The events described in this story happened a month and a half ago, in Shenandoah, West Virginia, although I typed this up about 2 weeks ago. I just haven't really had the guts to post this until what happened yesterday. The story starts in late September, when my family went to go visit our relatives, who invited us up to celebrate one of them, Desiree, getting like $2,000 in some scratch-off lottery thing. They live in this really fucking shitty part of Shenandoah that people from Charlestown, Shepherdstown and Ranson, basically the least rednecky parts of WV, like to call Squalor Holler. It's way up on the mountain, and exactly like how everyone pictures it when they hear about it, nothing but ramshackle shacks, rusty-ass rebuilt trailers, everything fucking covered in decades-old Christmas decorations because they're all too busy being smelly rednecks to ever clean up. Real deliverance shit, just no rivers or canoes. The relatives we were visiting are absolutely confirmed inbreeders, all cousins fucking each other. We don't refer to them as aunt, uncle, whatever, just relatives. Not terrible people or anything. Just absolutely cartoonish, depressing hillbilly stereotypes. So anyway, we're up here in this godforsaken trailer, it sucks. There's like 8 of them, plus me, my dad, my mom, and my sister. About 2 hours in, my mom takes my cell phone so that I can focus on the family time together, which is bullshit. All we did the whole time was eat TV dinners and be forced to watch NASCAR and shit. After like 6 hours of this shit, about 10 minutes before we're supposed to leave, it starts raining. We know how treacherous the roads can get up on the mountain, so we decide to wait for the rain to die down. Flash forward 2 hours later, it's fucking dark as hell, 10 o'clock, and there's a flood warning for the area. I have my phone back by this time. No reception, though, of course. I'm playing Tetris and Texas Hold'em and stuff, when suddenly I hear my dad start losing his shit in the next room. I walk over, and it turns out that they let slip that they'd buried their kid, Thomas, outside, and apparently were afraid the rain would wash up his body or some other horseshit. The kid was like 6, he was attacked by a dog, and they never told the cops. Just fucking buried him like he was a family pet. My dad's flipping his shit, and rightfully so, because, you know, we live in the 21st century and all. So our relatives all say they'll sort it all out in the morning. My parents tell me and my sister to stay in the same room as them during the night, and we do. None of us really suspected that they'd killed Thomas or anything, since they're really peaceful. They didn't even own any guns aside from this one old-timey double-barrel shotgun they had on a mantle. Nevertheless, we were creeped the fuck out, and intended to tell the cops in the morning once we got to town. So, it was like 3 in the morning. I couldn't sleep. Power had gone out for the 5th time or so, and I'm not able to charge my dead phone. Worst part is, I could see Thomas's little grave right outside the window. Little cross on it and everything, and I assumed the kid couldn't have been buried deep at all since they were so worried about him just washing up out of the grave. So I was just fixated on it. Kept being drawn to looking out the window. And then I saw the fucking worst thing in my life. Something was creeping through the trees toward the house. I stared at it for a while, but couldn't get a good look at it since it was raining and the brush was so thick. For a few minutes I assumed it was two really pale horses, kind of ambling through the woods side by side. But then it walked into the moonlight, and I saw that it was all one thing, like a kind of human torso, but wider. It finally stepped into full view, and I saw it had something like 6 legs, kind of somewhere between a beetle's legs and a horse's legs. 2 arms, right where someone would normally have them, but they were about a half a foot longer than any normal man's arms. It had a bald head, but the face looked like some sort of fucking bizarre masquerade ball kind of mask. This fucking clenched up, furrowed forehead, and a nose that looked sort of like a crow's or a raven's beak. It didn't have eyes, either, just like the depressions where eyes would go. It looked like it had a human mouth underneath its proboscis. What still strikes me to this day is that it seemed to have a penis, too, like right on the abdomen where a normal person's dick would be. The thing moved sort of gracefully, and made these soft thumping noises when it moved. It must have been like 7-8 feet tall, but sounded like it weighed maybe only 150 pounds at most. It starts walking towards Thomas's grave, and then I finally snap out of whatever trance I was in, and just scream. My mom is the first to wake up, and I tell her to look out the window. She rushes over, and doesn't really seem to understand what she's looking at. After a minute, though, the thing bends down and starts pawing at the grave with its hands. My dad and Jasper rush in, and Jasper just fucking loses his shit. Screams like a little girl, runs back out of the room, yelling for his father, yelling, "It's outside. It came and it's outside." I look back and see the thing is digging furiously at the ground, kicking up huge mounds of dirt. I hear these sounds of feet running around the house. I think they were looking for the shotgun. The thing reaches into the hole and grabs up what I assume was Thomas's body by the leg in one hand. The thing kind of gallops back into the woods, snapping all these branches and shit, and then that's when we all hear it. A kid crying. The sound of a child sobbing and crying, from the direction that the thing took off in. We left as soon as the rain let up, at like 5 a.m. I don't even think we told anyone at the house. Drove straight back to Ranson, only stopping for gas. No one said a word to each other. My family refuses to speak about what happened. I tried to bring it up once, just to make sure it was real. My dad told me to shut the fuck up, so I did. I typed this up about 3 weeks after it happened, but just saved it to a notepad file and left it alone. Never mentioned it to any of my friends or anything, just tried to erase it from my mind by getting absolutely fucked up drunk whenever my thoughts lingered on it. It mostly worked, up until yesterday. See, I work at this gas station in Ranson, from 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. I work the register, keep the place clean, and take out the trash. Yesterday, when I was bringing the trash bags over to the back of the building for the dude in the morning to take care of, I heard what I had assumed to be some junkie fucking around in the dumpster. I yelled at whoever it was a couple of times to get the hell out before I called the cops. But as I walked towards the source of the noise, I suddenly heard those same footsteps. That soft thump, hooves or feet, or whatever the hell they were. I turned right around and went back into the store and hid behind the counter. I look over at the outside security monitor and see some kind of movement from just off screen, something huge casting a shadow and moving. catch a glimpse of, I don't know, an elbow or something. A pale limb, darting in and out of view. It had to have been the same thing. I waited for it to leave, and after a while, it did. I woke up behind the counter at 6 a.m. this morning to my manager giving me this fucking look like I'm a drug addict or something. Went home, typed the rest of this up. And that's about it. Here's one of two stories from the Emerald Isle of Ireland. My uncle and his buds are exploring the mountains in Wicklow in the 90s. He's changed some details over the years, so take with a grain of salt. There is sweet fuck all in the Wicklow Mountains, fields and forests and then more fields and maybe a shed. Him and his friends just want a quiet place to drink and camp. He is with Tom and Declan. Tom is skittish skinny fucker and always has been. Declan is built like a fucking bear. They find a place, camp with a little barbecue out of their shitty hatchback car. Typical stuff. Tom heads off for a piss in the woods drunk. Uncle and Declan have a laugh for a while, drinking and doing dumb shit. Half an hour later, Tom hasn't come back. What? Okay, what the fuck? They head off to find him. After wandering around the forest looking for him, my uncle manages to lose Declan and trips halfway down a fucking hill in the wet mud. Lands hard on something soft. It's Tom, who is staring at my uncle as if he had just took a shit on his grandmother. Tom, what the fuck are you d? Tom interrupts him with a super slow motion point towards a clearing. Uncle described it as, a fucking load of pricks in robes staring at a fucking rock in the middle of the poxy forest. They are all standing silently still in blue robes around a tall rock in the middle of the fucking mountains. They haven't noticed my uncle and Tom yet. The two of them lie in the mud for nearly 20 minutes in fear. Suddenly fucking Declan bellows, lads, where the fuck are yous, for fuck's sake, it's FREEZIN. The mob spins around and immediately starts walking towards them. They run like Sonic the shit-scared hedgehog back to their camp. Start trying to pack everything. The mob is walking through the forest towards them. Leave things. In car. Driving. Home. They don't remember anything of the journey. He refuses to go camping now. There were rumors of a cult up there for decades, but that's the only proper sighting.
Heading into woods on camping trip with college buddies. Me. Girlfriend, now ex, Sarah. Her friend Jill. Jill's roommate Rachel. Rachel was kinda weird, very petite, always wore an old army jacket that was too big on her, pixie haircut. She was orphaned at 14, refused to be adopted or fostered, basically struck off on her own at 16, did not like being touched, and rumor was that someone tried to rape her when she was on her own, got free ride through college because LOL orphan. My roommate Steve, the nerdy guy. My friend Fred, he was Japanese and his name wasn't actually Fred, we called him that because his freshman year he dressed like Fred from Scooby-Doo. Fred's roommate Bill. Bill had a reputation as a creeper, but he was a really nice guy, did charity stuff and would give you the shirt off his back. Before I really knew him well, I called him for help when I got stranded on the roadside. He drove 3 hours in the middle of the night to get me and he didn't even know my name at the time. Bill was a survivalist and a nerd, so he was constantly bombarding us with random trivia and survival stuff. He once showed me some smoke grenades he'd rebuilt into chlorine gas grenades. Why? Because he could. Bill, needless to say, had never been laid in his entire life. We all head into the woods to stay at a cabin Steve's uncle had built. We get there and the cabin is, shit. It's literally made of plywood with exposed insulation, there are no windows, and only 3 rooms. It does have a nice wood-burning stove though. Set up sleeping bags on the old army cots in the 2 bedrooms, girls in one room, boys in the other. We start a fire in the wood stove to warm the place up and start talking about what we're going to do in the morning. Cook chili on top of stove. Fred and Bill start trading racist jokes aimed at one another, it's their thing. Bill is practically a white supremacist and Fred is so nationalist he thinks the Japanese Empire should have won World War II. Naturally, Fred and Bill get along and that's why they became roommates. Girls are weirded out by their antics, except Rachel, who's ignoring us all and playing with a Zippo. Jill needs to pee, only place to do it is behind a bush. Girls go together for some reason and we can hear them giggling and talking while Jill squats behind the bush. Ignore them and laugh while Bill tells Fred his ancestors weren't nuked enough and Fred calls him a filthy gaijin rundai. Girls suddenly come running back, complaining about a stench. What ste? Oh, fuck. It smells like roadkill rotting in the sun and something metallic, like burnt copper or smoldering wire. Holy hell, did that come out of you? Jill squawks in indignation. We all head inside to get away from the stench. Bill and Fred finish their racist jokes aimed at each other and move on to mocking Jews and the Holocaust. Girls give them a look that says they will never get laid, ever. Suddenly, there's a loud screech outside the cabin. Sounds like a woman being murdered. Everyone but Bill jumps and looks at the door. Bill calmly announces, "It's a fox, chill." Conversation and dinner resume. Everyone eventually heads to bed. Spend the next day hiking and exploring. Find a pond, the girls, minus Rachel, want to swim in it. Steve points out that it's too cold to swim and the pond is stagnant runoff from the hills. Bill suggests plinking and I get out my .22 rifle and we shoot at our empty chili can. Everyone participates, except Rachel, who just sort of stands off to one side playing with her lighter. Bill suggests getting out his FAL and shooting with it, but the girls don't want to shoot a big gun, he's disappointed. I didn't even know he'd brought it, but this doesn't surprise me. Head back to the cabin to play Risk. Bill and Rachel end up wiping us all out and ending in a stalemate. Night falls, we build a fire in the stove again. Charades. Yes, we're that bored. Steve is pantomiming when suddenly there's a loud shriek outside. Was that another fox? Bill replies, nope, that was a rabbit's death scream. That's the only time they make a sound, when they're dying. Well, thanks for that creepy trivia, Bill. Continue charades. Suddenly, horrid stench fills the cabin. Everyone complains and the girls retreat to their room to escape the smell. Thump against the door to the cabin, like a knock. What? Steve cautiously opens the door to investigate. Blood splattered on the door. There's a dead, disemboweled, skinless rabbit lying on the ground right outside the door. Did a fox throw a dead rabbit at our door? Creeped out, decide not to tell the girls. Nothing else happens, stench fades away and we all go to bed. Next day goes much the same as the first, hiking, exploring. Flirting with Sarah, my GF, constantly. Fred keeps hitting on Jill, who is doing her best to make it obvious she's ignoring his racist Asian ass. Bill keeps pointing out edible plants and other survival stuff to the group. I would suspect he was trying to impress the girls, but he always did that kind of thing. Did you know most praying mantises are actually agnostic? Lilwood. Start a game of freeze tag in the woods. Girls cheat and combine tag with hide and seek. Everyone gets into it. Eventually, everyone has been discovered and tagged except Bill. Where the fuck is he? Give up and loudly shout for him to come out. Drops out of the tree we were all standing next to, grinning. You sneaky motherfucker. Head back to cabin. Everyone else plays Risk while I make out with Sarah in the back. Suddenly, Steve runs in and I yank my hand out of her bra. Dude, what the hell? What? How did you do that? Do what? Dude, could we get some privacy here? No, seriously, how did you do that? Do what? You were outside yelling for Bill to come out. When? Just now. Clearly I've been in here the whole time and the only way in or out of the cabin is the front door. Dismiss it as a failed prank Steve was trying to pull on me. Back to sexy time. Yank my hand out of her bra a second time when Fred comes in and yells for us to come here quick. I'm pissed now. What the hell, guys? SHH. Listen. I don't hear anything. What are Y dash? Suddenly I hear a voice out in the woods. Okay, Bill, game's over. Come on out. It's the exact phrase I shouted earlier. Who the hell is in the woods repeating what I said? Fred looks at me and says, dude, it sounds just like you. Whoever it is shouts again and it really does sound just like me. Who the hell is out there? Steve cracks the door open to peek outside, doesn't see anything. Who's out there? Silence. Then. Okay Bill, game's over. Come on out. Bill shrugs and steps outside. I'm here. What do you want? Silence. Maybe whoever it is hadn't thought this far ahead. Bill stands there for a minute, then comes back inside. Dude, are you nuts? We don't know who could be out there. In typical Bill fashion, 0 fucks were given. Instead, he calmly gets out his FAL, which is the biggest rifle I've ever seen, and slaps a 30-round clip into it and chambers around. Then he turns on the flashlight clipped on the barrel and walks outside. If I'm not back in 10 minutes, leave without me. Dude, WTF. We wait, Steve standing watch at the door. We can see Bill's flashlight bobbing around in the trees. We watch as he pauses, scans all around him, then continues deeper into the woods. After a while, we can't see his light through the trees anymore. Sarah and Jill are getting scared and retreat to their room. Rachel hangs out with us 3 guys as we wait for Bill to return. 20 minutes pass and no sign of Bill. If this is a joke, it's not funny. Fred swears it's not a joke, or if it is then Bill didn't tell him about it. I get my .22 rifle and load it. Fred retrieves a cookery knife from Bill's camping gear. Steve and Rachel are still standing at the front door. Suddenly, Steve calls out, Bill? I'm here. Fred and I come running back to the door and look outside. We can dimly see the silhouette of someone standing just inside the tree line. Bill? What took you so long? I'm here. Start getting a creepy vibe. Bill? What are you doing? What do you want? The hell? We want you to come back inside the cabin, dumbass. Then we see a dim light bobbing around in the trees, in the direction Bill went. Wait. I'm suddenly deafened and partially blinded by the muzzle flash of a gunshot going off next to my head. Rachel has produced a snub-nose revolver from somewhere within her jacket and fired a shot up into the air. We have guns. Whoever you are, leave us the hell alone. We can't see the figure out in the darkness anymore, but the light is bobbing faster as the owner runs toward the cabin. Bill bursts out of the tree line with his rifle. Why are you still here? I told you to leave if I took more than 10 minutes. I've been half an hour. Who's shooting? Dude, where the hell were you? Something was following me down the trail, so I fish-hooked to ambush it, but it went back the way I came. I waited a little longer in case it was trying the same thing, then I took my time coming back so I could hear it if it followed me again. Then he gives us all a dirty look and says, I told you to leave my ass if I was gone more than 10 minutes. It's like you people have never seen these movies before. Jill and Sarah are freaked out over the person imitating us, and then the gunshot. Rachel just calmly swaps out the spent round in her revolver for a fresh one. I'm not sure she's even old enough to legally own a handgun. Well, now we know how she handled herself living on the streets as a homeless person. Bill gathers us in the front room and insists on a rational discussion of what's happened. We eventually decide it's someone pranking us and they're just really good at imitating voices. And repeat the same phrases we shouted earlier. And is in the middle of fucking nowhere screwing with some college students. Right. We all eventually go to sleep, but I noticed Bill kept his rifle within arm's reach. The next morning there was a dead something or other with its skin missing and its guts splattered all over the front of the cabin. Bill thought it was either a possum or raccoon. The girls are thoroughly creeped out now and insist on leaving. Sarah is convinced it's some serial killer and the dead animals are a warning or some sick gift. Bill isn't entirely convinced the dead animals weren't left there by a bobcat or something, but is also convinced there's a person out in the woods fucking with us. Steve and Fred don't know WTF is going on, but they don't think it's funny. We all eventually decide we're going to find whoever is messing with us and get them back. The girls are too scared to leave the cabin. Bill recruits Fred as his assistant and they spend the day building booby traps, digging pits, and rigging perimeter alarms from empty cans full of pebbles. Steve retrieves a hatchet from the woodpile and nominates himself captain of the creepy cabin self-defense squad, since it's his uncle's place. Everyone basically ignores him and Bill becomes de facto leader since he seems like he knows what he's doing. Finally, he and Fred finish whatever the hell they were doing out in the woods and we all sit around the table playing cards. None of us really know how to play poker, except Jill, who wipes us out. Fred suggests strip poker, which the girls immediately veto. Then we wait. And wait. And wait some more. At this point, I don't care how creepy the motherfucker is, whoever is messing with us better show up or I'm going to be pissed. I regret that sentiment wholeheartedly. Just before sunset, Bill instructs Sarah and Jill to shelter in their back room and has me and Rachel guard the door with our guns. Fred and Steve, being armed with a hatchet and kukri, are to guard the girls in the back while we defend the front door. What are you going to be doing? I'll be up in a tree waiting to ambush whoever it is. They'll be expecting us all to be holed up in the cabin. Explain why this is a terrible idea. Bill ignores me and tells us not to shoot unless we know 100% for sure it isn't him. He disappears into the trees. Crazy motherfucker. Jill is insisting we all just go home, sensible, and keeps asking how we know Bill isn't just an idiot who's making shit up to look good. Fred insists he knows what he's doing. We hear a rattle from one of our perimeter alarms. I crack the door open. I can't see anything outside. Who's out there? Come on out. It's my voice again. Who the hell are you? Come out where I can see you. I'm here. Bill's phrase, but my voice still. I'm seriously creeped out now. Come out where I can see you. I'm here. Come on out. Against my better judgment, I step outside the door and shine my flashlight at the trees. There's someone standing in the tree line with their back toward us. They're dressed the same as Bill, but they look filthy and its hair is longer. Who the hell are you? No response. Turn around so I can see you. Still nothing, it just stood there. I have a gun. I'll shoot if you don't turn around. It didn't say anything, but whoever or whatever it was started convulsing, like it was laughing hysterically, but there was no sound. You better leave us alone. This is our property. You better get out of here. It was still standing there with its back to us, but now it was jittering like. It's hard to describe, but it's like it was under a strobe light or something. I take a step forward, keeping the flashlight and my .22 aimed at it. Do you hear me? I was debating what to do next and wondering where the hell Bill was, when I smelled that stench again. It was so sudden and so foul, it was like being hit in the face with a brick. I gagged at the stink of a dead animal decomposing in raw sewage and mold and my eyes watered. I looked back at the cabin at the others and Rachel and Steve both shouted in shock. I spun around and the whatever it was suddenly much closer, halfway between the tree line and cabin, with its back still toward us. I scrambled backwards toward the cabin. I will never forget what happened next. Fred holds the kukri over his head in a two-handed grip and, no shit, screams bonsai. Charges out of the cabin toward the creepy strobe light person. No wonder he gets along so well with Bill, they're both crazy motherfuckers. Fred runs past me, then immediately trips over a piece of stray firewood and face plants into the dirt, dropping his big ass knife. The person is convulsing like something is crawling around under its skin and clothes. Rachel is shouting for us to get back inside the cabin and waving her revolver around, and suddenly the night is shattered by a deafening boom. The creeper freezes motionless. Boom. Boom. Even louder than the gunshots is an ear-splitting shriek. If a banshee and a cougar were slowly lowered into a wood chipper, it wouldn't sound half as loud or disturbing as whatever the hell the scream was. The creepy person vanishes like they were never there. Bill sprints into view, switches on the flashlight on his rifle, and scans the tree line. I told you idiots to stay in the cabin. After some shouting back and forth, Bill and Fred investigate outside while the rest of us go back in the cabin. They find some blood where the thing had been standing, or at least they think it's blood, because it's pitch black. They can't find any footprints anywhere, and other than the alarm that was shaken when it first appeared, none of the booby traps were tripped. They come back inside the cabin and the rest of us have decided fuck this, we're getting the hell out of Dodge. Bill calmly loads 3 rounds into his magazine to replace the ones he shot and asks if we really want to load our stuff into the van in the dark with that thing out there. Good point. We all pack our shit anyway so we can leave at first light. Everyone is too keyed up to sleep and sits up. The stench returns, that dead animal and burning copper smell. What the hell is that smell? Do you think it's the thing? Probably, but we didn't smell it earlier when it was dash. Thud. Something just smacked into the wall of the cabin. Dead silence as we all grasp weapons, makeshift or otherwise, and nervously listen. After a long moment, something thuds against the wall again. We don't move a muscle. Something began scratching at the door, like slowly dragging your nails down the length of the door, then starting again after reaching the bottom. Who's there? I'm here. Come on out. It was Steve's voice this time, and he paled visibly when he heard it. Fuck you. Who are you? What do you want? Game's over. Come on out. That's when Rachel fired a shot through the door. Despite the ringing in my ears, I could hear what sounded like the world's nastiest catfight as something screeched, hissed, spat, and slammed into the door repeatedly. She fired a second shot and the noise stopped. After a long, uncomfortable silence, we heard the screeching again, but far off in the woods. Bill opened the door and told everyone, get your shit in the van, we're leaving. As we started throwing shit into the van, I noticed Bill had disappeared around the side of the cabin that the thumps on the wall had come from. I tossed the last of my stuff in the van, then followed. We found out what had thumped against the wall. There were 2 splotches of blood on the side of the cabin, and underneath each was half of a full-grown deer. Oh fuck. It ripped a deer in half and threw the halves at the cabin. Bill tells me not to say anything about it because it'll scare the girls. I'm pretty sure they're already scared, dude. We rejoin the others as they make one last trip inside the cabin for the last of our stuff. Bill grabs me by the shoulder. Steve, go start the van. Girls, go wait in the van. We'll get everything else. The girls made no argument and got in the van with Steve, leaving Bill, Fred, and me in the cabin. That's almost everything. Fred, you go check the back and make sure we have everything. Then Bill physically pulled me and Fred out of the cabin while we gave him a WTF look. And then I saw someone else in the back of the cabin, wearing filthy clothes like Bill's, packing things up. Oh fuck, it was in the cabin with us. Bill quietly pulled us out of the cabin, and I pointed my rifle at it. I heard a pop like a firecracker going off and something smacked me in the leg. I looked down at my feet and saw. Is that a fucking grenade spoon? I looked up just in time to see Bill pull the pin from a second grenade, one of those big smoke grenade types, release the spoon with a pop, and throw it into the cabin. Then he shut the door and locked the handle and the deadbolt with Steve's keys and stepped back. He looked at me and calmly said, "There might any second now." Then he pointed his rifle at the cabin and waited. Steve got out of the van and joined us, asking WTF we were doing. Suddenly, we heard that ungodly screeching again, this time from inside the cabin. It was like someone was electrocuting a burlap sack full of angry lynxes who all had their balls in a vice. Bill calmly explains to Steve that he had just set the cabin on fire with fucking homemade thermite grenades he'd brought along on a camping trip for reasons that made sense only to Bill. "What the fuck, man? You set fire to my uncle's cabin? Hey, my risk set is still in there too." As if that made it even, somehow. The screeching gets even louder and something slams into the door, hard. Bill calmly dumps 10 or 15 rounds of .308 into the door and wall of the cabin. The inhuman shrieks get even louder, smoke starts pouring from under the door and we can see an orange glow through the bullet holes. Can we leave now?" "Nah," Bill casually responds. "Need to make sure we don't burn the forest down too." "Dude, fuck the forest. We can burn the whole state to the ground, it kills that thing and anything else like it. Also, I kinda want to shoot it if it breaks out of the cabin so it doesn't seek revenge. I don't want this shitty horror movie to have a sequel." Realize this makes sense, and not just because Bill's acting as if we're in a horror movie. Inhuman shrieks and something slamming repeatedly against the walls of the cabin continue for a good 20 minutes before falling silent. The girls get out of the van and join us as we watch the cabin burn to the ground. The heat from the fire is barely tolerable, and we're standing 30 feet away. The cabin finally collapses and everyone but Bill gets in the van. He stands there watching it burn, holding his rifle like he still expects some monster to come charging out of the roaring inferno. I know for a fact he's going to be bragging to the entire campus about how he single-handedly slew a monster when we get back. Finally, the cabin has burned to the point that it's just a crackling, smoldering pile of charcoal and ashes, not even a dim orange glow visible in the darkness. Bill stretches his limbs, then gets in the van and tells Steve to drive into the town so we can get gas and breakfast. We arrive in a town of maybe 400 people an hour later, and stop at a combination gas station/diner. As we walk in, Bill jokingly comments that if we were really in a horror movie, he'd have at least earned a blowjob from the heroine. Rachel grabs him by the head and pulls him into the back of the diner/gas station. We don't see them again until after we've ordered breakfast and our food has arrived. I only have Bill's word for this, but he claims she pulled him into the bathroom and blew him on the spot. They've been going out ever since, for almost 2 years now. Steve told his uncle that the cabin burned down because the chimney for the wood stove got clogged or something and caught fire. His uncle doesn't care since it was a shitty cabin he built in a single weekend and is just glad we're all okay and didn't burn the woods down. We've never gone back there, but Steve's uncle has gone camping there several times since, mostly during hunting season, and hasn't seen or heard anything odd. Other than the skeletal remains of a deer torn in half next to what's left of the cabin, that is. Bill is the only one of us crazy enough to go camping. You murder one creepy monster in a fire, you sort of lose any fear you had of the woods at night. Speak for yourself, you nutjob. And that's my creepy skinwalker/fleshgate/wendigo/whatever the hell it is story. I have no idea if we actually killed it or not, and I'm not poking around in the burnt remains of that cabin to find out.
Not my story, something a Native American guy posted a while ago, but it's some of the creepiest shit I've ever heard. My dad picks me up from school in his pickup truck after he got off work one winter's night. We were driving on a long stretch of road that goes through the woods. It's pitch black outside. The truck radio didn't work, so I was just sitting staring straight out at the road getting hypnotized by the passing trees. Suddenly started to get an intense sensation that something is watching me through the window to my right. I started to turn my head to see what it is when my dad yells, "Don't look." Immediately start to hear tapping on the window right next to my face. Heart stops. Only time I ever saw fear on my dad's face. He started to pray loudly in Navajo. Stare straight ahead, heart pounding, not daring to look out the window. Suddenly the truck dips as a weight falls into the bed. Whatever the fuck this thing is in the back right behind my head. Start to hear tapping on the window behind me. My father makes me look at him as he continues to pray. Close my eyes tight and wish for it to be over. After a few endless minutes the truck dips again and the tapping stops. My father says, "Tomorrow we will ask your grandfather to say a prayer so the evil will forget our faces," English to Navajo equivalent. Drive home and lie awake in bed all night. Father and I never talk about it again. /K/Amando fucks something spooky. Be me. 21 years old. My one popular black friend invites me to some Innawoods rave. He's the drug dealer of our dorm. Carrying Gramps 1911 because I thought that some guy high on PCP would try to kill me. Also /K/3 Spupa 5 me threads. Middle of the night, full moon. Everyone but me is at least doing weed. I brought Stolichnaya because my Slavness, but I never drank any of it. I look around for someone to talk to because everyone else is higher than a plane and listening to shitty rap. Minute later see a girl that looks pretty sober sitting on a log near the edge of camp. Brunette, kinda French looking. 7/10 would still bang though. Weird as fuck clothing, like we traveled back to the 60s. Whatever, go to sit by her. She's incredibly socially awkward, like 10x worse than me. She also had a really thick French accent. Talk about where she's from Quebec. Start talking to her in French, I'm pretty good at it BTW. She asks what my address is. I tell her the full address because my penis is starting to do the talking. When I tell her that, she does this thing where she cracks her neck by rolling about. Don't really think anything of it because I have OCD and do that sometimes. She asks me if I want to come into the woods and kiss her. Being a kissless virgin at this point I'm okay with this. Leads me a mile in a woods. Get that coppery smell like in chem class melting magnesium in acid water. Only sound is a nearby waterfall. Weird and kind of annoying because of my tinnitus. Start kissing. Really awkward. I pull away, she asks me what's wrong. Tell her it's nothing. She tells me she can be anything you want. At this point I think she's a tranny. Think in my mind for a millisecond how much better it would be if I were fucking this 10/10 Ukrainian I found a picture of somewhere. Say no thank you and walk back to camp. I hear wait in this cute little Russian accent. I turn around, it is exactly what I thought of. Pick very fucking related. Now at DEFCON 1. Reach down and touch my 1911. Dick is 2000% erect though. My dick convinces me this might actually be worth dying for. My brain actually agrees. Have the best sex of my entire life. Nothing has been able to come close to that. Snuggle in the leaves for like half an hour and just talk about drugs and Russian music. She says she has to leave, and just walks across this stream butt-ass naked. I just murmur an okay. I look for my clothes, but as I put on my clothes I notice that her clothes in my 1911 have just vanished. Fug. Walk back to camp, use the belt method to CC my boner. Stare into the fire the entire night wondering WTF just happened. Wake up the next morning, best friend asks what happened after I went into the woods with the girl, basically tell her everything directly before it. Shapeshifted. Doesn't believe me. That's good. Buy an airshit 1911 until I can get another real one to try to fool my mom. To happening part 2. A week later. Still can't get my mind of what happened. A few nights I had nightmares that became way too spooky for me. At home. My mom goes to AC for a job-related reward. Listening to Vera Lynn. Hear knock on door. Figure it's the pizza guy. It's the girl. She says politely, hey it's Katie Usha, do you remember me from last weekend? Decide it's best not to tempt fate a second time. Slam the door, dynamically nope the fuck up to the attic, burn some printer paper, smother some .30-06 rounds in the ash, load up Gramps M1. Stay in the attic the entire night, cradling my M1. What exactly did I see there? I doesn't really match anything I've heard about before or since. I'm now pissed at myself for noping the fuck out of here. Every girl I've ever met after that, I've ended up hating. I'm seriously debating going back into those woods and looking for it. And I want Gramps 1911 back. Also, I wasn't wearing a condom when I fucked it. Does that mean anything?